Morning you guys. So in this video I'm gonna put bearings into on the shaft of a 32-36 Weber. You can also do it to the 38 Weber, and you can also do it to some 32 Webers. You simply remove, it's not simply, you remove the old seals and you put these little bearings in there. I'll show you how to do that. So this is the carby that I'm gonna use. It is in a hectic condition, but it doesn't matter. It'll look different when we're done. Whenever you do a carb repair or fishing rod, a fishing reel repair, anything, have a bowl or a bucket close by where you can put all your screws and bolts and nuts and stuff in. That way you know, well, once you've put it together and there's something left in there, you didn't put it back. Number one. And number two, you're not going to lose it, and you're not going to mix it up with stuff from any other carby. So whenever I repair a carb like this, I try and see if the accelerator pump circuit is open, because sometimes there's a problem there and I have to drill it out. So I'm just going to test this one as well. Bear with me a sec. So I've put some gasoline in there and no luck. There is movement, one or two bubbles coming out, so it's not stuck. I'm just going to put this little non-return back on here. Maybe we're lucky. It saves a lot of trouble when you do this. The very first thing I do to a carby is this. Very first thing. Because you can put it together and put it back in your car and everything. Ah, there's bubbles coming out. It means that channel is not blocked. And it could be that this jet is blocked. Fair enough. Fuel dripping out the back. Tons of it. I think we're good here. Might have to put another spray jet in there. But I think we're good. Look at the back there. That diaphragm is gone. Which is fine. I'm going to put in a new one. I don't think this channel is totally blocked. Sometimes there's a little ball inside there. Sometimes that ball gets stuck, rusted, and then you've got to drill it out. See, it's pumping. We're good here. Now we're good here. Now to clean this carby. So I've got these bearings. You can get them from your local bearing guy. There they are. And they have to go inside there, behind there and there, and on the other side. But to do that, you've got to remove all of this and all of this, and then you've got to remove the shaft. Now the biggest challenge is to remove the shaft, and the reason for that is in the factory they punch it over there so these screws don't get undone, and when you try and unscrew them, 90% of the time you bugger up the thread. So what you have to do, you have to grind them flat, which is actually quite challenging, especially on this one, because this one is spring loaded and this one can't go further than that because of that stopper there. So you have to remove this to get it further and unhook the spring so you don't work against that spring the whole time. So this has got to be removed. Mind you, don't damage your casing when you remove this, because it's not the easiest thing to remove, but you can remove it. There we go. There's a seal inside there. We are going to put the spring back because the spring will keep the bearing in place, and there's a seal in there. We'll get the seal out, and then now we have to unhook the spring. Use a different pick. Get the spring over there so we don't work against it. Now this can turn like that, and with any luck we'll get in there with the air tool to grind that off a little bit. Don't have to grind it off all the way, but just that chamfer they've put on there, we've got to grind off. I'll show you now what I mean. So I'm going to use my air tool. Now on the 36 side it's fairly easy to get in there to grind it flat. You've got to be careful not to touch the body. But on the 32 side, it's not so easy. You've got to be so careful not to not to touch the side of the carby. I'm not gonna record while I'm doing this because it's quite challenging. I've got nobody to hold the camera for me, so I'm gonna go grind these quickly. Hopefully I won't mess up the carby, and if all goes well, I'll be back in a little while. So I've ground that side off. Wasn't too bad. I by accident touched the butterfly blade over there. It's not the end of the world. Now we have to undo those screws, and I would advise to use something like this before the time. Let it soak a bit, and then use a tip screwdriver, something like that, to fit in there. Because the last thing you want to do is to strip that screw, number one, and number two, it fits in nice and tight, to damage your shaft, because this shaft, both these shafts are in really good condition, so you really don't want to do that. So I'm going to spray those quickly and let it soak, and then we'll see how that goes, undoing them. They actually come out pretty easy. And but you see, they're always rusted. Sometimes you can use them again, sometimes you have to replace them with new ones, but they're normal metric screws. So once we're there, I've got to undo this, and then we can take that shaft out. Size 8 spanner. There's the little spring. We're going to put that back to hold the bearing in place. Now we just simply slide out the butterfly, and this will come out. There we go. There's the bush, the seal. So we're going to put the bearing in place of that. But before I do all of that, I'm going to clean up these shafts nicely and clean the carb more, clean that. Because once we're done, you know, we want it to look newish. There's the other seal. So the bearing is going to be in place of the seal. See there? Bearing in the seal is just about the same size. But before I put the bearings in, this is going to go through a serious cleaning process, and the shafts and everything. I'll clean them on a wire brush and everything. The nice thing about this, if your shafts are worn, it's going to be worn in the casing. So where you put your bearing, it's not going to be worn there. So it's actually a big save as well, for these carbs. Anyway, time to clean. Okay, so it's time for assembly. Whenever I put something together, I like to put a little bit of oil on it. So we can start with a bit of oil on the shaft. Next, the spring must go in, because remember, the spring is going to now keep the bearing in place. And then the next thing, you've got to put the bearing on. One thing that you have to do is make sure that your bearing is fairly loose on the shaft. Otherwise the spring can't keep it in place. So, but I'm happy with that. Now I can go in. See? There it is in place. On the other side, same story. The little bearing has to go in. Like that. And then the spring's got to go in. Like that. And then obviously this plate goes on. Keep everything in check. The washer, spring washer, and the nut. I'll get everything in place now, and the nut to take. There we go. So that's done. Now there's bearings in there. Next thing, we've got to get the butterfly back in place. Obviously the spring is keeping that wherever. So when you put a butterfly in, there's an angle on the butterfly. See there? There's an angle on it. And that angle is going to close on your butterfly on the choke like that. So obviously then that's got to go in like that. And it must just push in by hand. If it doesn't push in by hand, something is wrong. And then you've got to line those two holes up. Like that. And I always like to make it do that, and it sounds like it closes properly, then you know it's in place. Now we can put the two screws in. So remember, these screws were punched on the other side so they can't become undone, and now we've ground it off. So we've got to now do something for it not to become undone, and you have to put locks tight or lock nut, whatever you use. You have to put a little bit of that on, otherwise you're going to have problems. Just a drop. You don't need a lot of the stuff. And then before you lock them, just make sure that the butterfly is in the right place, like that. Now you can lock it. There we go. That's that side done. And then just tighten that screw. That's that side done. Simple as that. So okay, a little bit of sandpaper and it's all smooth. A little bit of oil, spring, bearing. Now what I'm doing now is I'm going to put the bearing, that's better, I'm going to put the bearing in the casing, because that's where it's going to be. Then now I can put the spring in place, because this accelerator return spring must go on there. So I want the bearing to stay in place. And it doesn't want to. Just push it in there. Now I can put the spring on. Remember, we had to take it off. Because that's got a hole there where it's got to go in. I'll get this on quickly. Look it in place. Get it over there. Right, this is going to be fun. I've got to get now that hole. Get the pin lined up over there. Like that. There we go. That's the one side done. Other side. Just a drop of oil. You see? All fun and games. That's what happens. Let me get that back in. You can put it in and then put your butterfly in to hold it in place, but I like to put the other side in before I put the butterfly in to line it up properly, so that I know that my butterfly is in the correct position. But I don't mind doing this 2 or 3 times, it's fine. Okay, 3rd time lucky it's in. So now it's simply putting the spring in and then get this in place. This is never easy. And then I can put that butterfly in. Make sure everything is in place. Remember the angle, it's got to go that way around. There we go. And you've got to remember to get this, that's why I want this in place before I tighten that up, because that can cause your accelerator link to stick and you don't know why it's sticking. So I'm going to assemble all of this, tighten the nut before I screw that tight. But that's basically how you install bearings into these carbies. It's brilliant, I think. Anyway, I'm going to assemble all of this. I haven't cleaned everything yet before I put that together. So okay, I've got everything in there that's supposed to be in there, and that nut is tight. So because there's always a little bit of play on the shaft like that, and I've had it a couple of times where guys say the shaft is stuck. They always get a high idle and they don't know why, and that's the reason. The butterfly is screwed in the wrong position. So you always have to have it a little bit of play, not there, look at the gap over there, not all the way there, not all the way back, but just in between. And then you can put your 2 screws in, and remember, always with a bit of Loctite. So I'm going to put these in quickly, and then we'll screw them up. So before you lock them up, you've got to find just nip it and a little bit loose. You've got to find where that butterfly is going to be happy and that shaft is going to be happy, so there's no tension on it. And I think it's just there. I've got my Loctite in. I'm going to nip it up. There we go. That's good enough. Here we have it. Now I've got a lovely carb with 4 bearings in, and it should last forever and a day. Look at that. Hey? Couldn't be better. There you go. Bearings done. I think it's brilliant. Like this carby should last forever. I can't see what can really go wrong with it. Regular maintenance, and if the bearings are not so nice anymore, you can replace them. You can't do this with the 36 DCD7, so that to me makes this a better carby. Anyway, I really hope this helps someone. Be safe out there.